Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents On These Magic Shores by Yamile Saied Méndez, narrated by Stacy Gonzalez. On these magic shores, children at play are forever beaching their coracles. We too have been there. We can still hear the sound of the surf, though we shall land no more. J.M. Barrie, Peter Pan. Chapter 1, Chasing Shadows. Peter Pan was an idiot. Only an idiot would wish to be a child forever. The play Peter Pan was for idiots. Practicing for it was for idiots. But if I was going to be Wendy, the only important girl character in the play, I had to practice, even if I sounded like the greatest idiot of all. 12 years old, and here I was, embarrassing myself in front of my baby sisters. They both sat quietly watching as I pretended my sister Coda's teddy bear was Peter Pan. But the bear's beady eyes, the simple smile, the binky with the yellowing silicone. It was too much for me. "Let's pretend Peter's invisible," I said, tossing the bear aside. "Or let's just talk to his shadow. There's plenty of shadows in this horrible place." Our moldy basement apartment smelled like a dungeon, and I was the prisoner. Coda's outraged gasp almost stopped me, almost. I threw a blanket over the bear to keep it out of sight. "Minerva Soledad Miranda," she said, her loose top front tooth flapping in and out with every breath she took. "Why are you so rude? Our home is not horrible." It was Mamá speaking through my 6-year-old sister. "And don't be mean to Mr. Brownie. He can't breathe." I grabbed my hair and silent shouted, "Don't call me Minerva. It's Minnie. Minnie. Understood?" I hissed, and my throat hurt like I had shouted for real. I was frustrated, but not dumb. If we made a lot of noise and the neighbor, Mr. Chang, complained, Mama would be furious. I stood in front of Coda, relishing the feeling of being 2 heads taller than someone for once in my life. She pretended to be unfazed, but her cheeks turned bright red, like Mr. Chang's unpicked apples in the backyard. At the first chance she had, Coda skipped away from me. "Don't stare at my tooth," she said. "It doesn't want to fall because the tooth fairy's scared of you." "The tooth fairy? Fairies don't exist," I laughed. No, I mocked her. And to make her suffer even more, I added, "Besides, we don't get a tooth fairy. Remember, for us it's the mouse, el ratón Pérez." Mamá insisted on us keeping the tradition from Argentina, where she'd grown up. I'd gone along because I hadn't known any better. Once I'd started school, though, and the other kids told me a fairy took their teeth and not a mouse, switching to the fairy had been a no-brainer for me. For Coda, who loved fairies with an irrational fervor, choosing a mouse over a fairy was inconceivable. Coda pressed her hands over her ears, even if it went against Mama's wishes. "I can't hear you! I can't hear you!" "That is, if you get anything. You're being terrible," I yelled above her chant. She heard me after all. Her eyes went all misty and shiny. She snatched the bear from underneath the blanket and hugged it so tight it would have been strangled if it were a real thing. Coda was terrified of mice, but her greatest fear was hurting a fairy, even by accident. Because of Tinkerbell and the tales about the Bequis, the Argentine fairies, our mom told us, my sisters believed that when I said fairies weren't real, one fell dead in fairyland. Now they looked away from me as if I were worse than a dirty rodent. My cheeks burned. I didn't really want Coda and Avi to think I was a fairy killer. Hands floppy, I clapped and rolled my eyes while I chanted, "I do believe in fairies, I do. Happy now?" Avi nodded, but Coda remained stubbornly unimpressed. "Anyway, why do you want to be named after a mouse?" she whispered, setting Mr. Brownie on the bed she and I shared. Our baby sister Avalon, Avi, watched us like she was waiting for one more clue to tell her if she should cry or not. Had a fairy died after my words? Or come back to life after my chant? Stupid fairies. I stuck out my tongue and tickled Avi. At 3 years old, she wasn't a baby anymore, but she was still plumpy and soft. Her beautiful lips. Famous women paid money for those lips, and she got them because she won the genetic lottery with her dark skin and her curly blonde hair. She could be a baby model. So unlike me, who, as a baby, had been so ugly, I'd been almost cute. But not Avi. She was a real beauty. To run away from me, she hid behind her blanket. A brown eye peeked through a hole in the flannel, right where Winnie the Pooh's head was supposed to be. Our eyes met, and although she smiled when I tickled and tickled, she didn't make a sound. She never did. She squirmed out of my finger's reach. I'd give anything to hear her voice. Coda put down Mr. Brownie and held her arms out for Avi. I sat on the bed in front of them, ready to pour out the secrets of my soul to the only people I knew wouldn't go out and spread them everywhere. "Minerva's a stupid name," I said. "Why couldn't I get a name like yours, Dakota, or like Avalon?" "Avalon is the best name of all," Coda said, patting Avi's golden curls. I heard the happiness in her voice because I'd said her name was better than mine. I nodded. Avalon was lovely. It was the name of the Queen of the Fairies, the name of an angel, and my baby sister was an angel. The only one I'd ever met. McGonagall in Harry Potter is Minerva, you know. Do you think people at school don't say that to me at least 1,000,000 times a day? My voice was prickly and harsh. I hated the way it sounded, but I couldn't stop being so mean. Coda was quiet for a second or two. Then she said, "If you always get in such a bad mood when you practice, why do you even want to be Wendy?" I glanced away from her dark brown eyes, so dark they looked black. She understood a lot more than a 6-year-old should. Every single year for the last 50 years or so, the school does the Peter Pan play. "Every year?" Coda asked. "Every year." She shrugged. "It's about fairies. It's the best story ever. That's why." She didn't understand anything. It's not the best. If you listened to Mamá, you'd know it's more than about fairies. Now let me talk, will you? Coda and Avi watched me with huge eyes, and I continued. The kids who get the lead roles in the play get elected as student body president and vice president for the next school year. 8th grade. When school really matters, I said in a sing-songy voice. If one day I'm going to be the first Latina president of the United States. I know you say that every day. I sent her my specialty smile. Shut your face. Will you let me explain? Coda did her one shoulder shrug. Avi nuzzled closer to her. As I was saying, I continued, I have it all figured out. If I get elected student body president in middle school, it will be easier to get elected student body president in high school, and then college. When I'm a lawyer, I'll run for president of the country. And when I'm in the White House, I'll be the most powerful woman in the world. And no one would tell me what to do. To Coda's credit, she didn't even bat an eyelash. Okay then, she said after a couple of heartbeats. Let's practice a little more. Remember, if you're going to be Wendy, try to sound soft and sweet. That other girl, Bailey Cooper, I said, hating my name even more when I compared it to Bailey's. I'd heard Bailey Cooper telling her friends she'd auditioned for Wendy, and no one else would dare compete against her. They wouldn't risk losing her friendship. But Wendy's role was mine. Mine. Yes! Bailey Cooper. The girl on the billboard. Coda's eyes sparkled in adoration. She clasped her hands under her chin. Bailey's voice in the farm commercial is so sweet. It must be all that honey she eats. Think about it when you talk to your little brothers. Or eat more honey. I hated honey. But then I knew good advice when I heard it. Coda was right. I stood up in front of the girls and struck a pose, with my hand softly waving in the air. Johnny and Michael, I said in my best British accent. Let's help Peter the dummy find his shadow. Coda belly laughed. Avi imitated her, clutching her belly too. Peter the stupid, I said, trying to make them laugh again. Peter the poop head. Coda roared in laughter. Not loud enough to cover the sound of the door creaking behind me. It needed oiling again. But that wasn't what made me want to shrivel like a dry leaf, though. It was the presence I felt behind me, like a cold breeze on the back of my neck. I should have noticed the time. Why do you use that kind of language in front of your sisters? Mamá asked. Why do you use it at all? I turned around and saw her as she leaned on the doorframe. She looked like she couldn't take one more step, like she was tired of everything. Her jobs, her life, me. Not my sisters. They made her smile. I and everything I ever did or said, on the other hand, always brought the flashing eyes and the downward corners of her mouth. Disculpa, Mamá, I said, switching to the family language because I didn't want to deprive the girls of their cultural heritage, like she always said. She didn't hear me, though. She was busy listening to Coda tell about her day, in perfect Spanish, of course, and looking at Avi like she wanted to make sure my baby sister was all right. When Coda moved out of the way, Mamá stepped into the room and looked around. I suddenly saw things from her perspective. The beds were rumpled. The floor was covered with toys, pillows, and the Cheerios Avi had spilled. Mamá put down a huge plastic bag I hadn't noticed she was holding, picked up Avalon in one arm, and started putting things away. She didn't need to say anything for us to know she was disappointed. The disappointment pulsed from her. Coda joined her, and I stayed rooted in place, not knowing what to do. If I did nothing, she and Coda would have to do all the work. If I helped, Mamá would say I was only helping so she wouldn't get mad at me, which in a way was true, but mostly not. Instead of picking up toys, I made the beds and arranged the cushions on top. Avi wiggled out of Mama's arms, got on the bed I had just made, and started jumping. Are you having fun, Avalon? Mamá didn't use Avi like Coda and I did. She never used diminutives. Avi and Mamá smiled at each other with so much love. Maybe one day she would smile at me like that. Maybe when I became the president, she'd be proud in the White House with me. Say yes, Avalon. Say yes for me. Please? Mamá pleaded. Avi kept jumping. Quietly. Silent like a shadow. A toilet flushing rumbled from upstairs. Avi stared at the ceiling, and with an angelic smile, she twirled in place, as if the sound were some kind of music only she could hear, and not Mr. Chang doing his business. Coda caught my eye, and I had to swallow a chuckle. Mamá wasn't in the mood for laughing, I knew from experience. After we picked up the room, Mamá plopped on the floor like she hadn't sat in hours and days and years. I brought you something, hijas. Do you want to see? We gathered around her like little chicks surrounding our mama hen. She pulled clothes out of the plastic bag, everything in perfect condition, though they had obviously been used before. A hint of laundry softener tickled my nose. Coda squealed at the sight of a flannel dress, white like fat-free milk, with a delicate print of snowflakes. She put it on top of her jeans and t-shirt and twirled. Avi found a pair of boots, the expensive kind with lamb's wool inside. I watched, trying to push down the longing. I wanted something beautiful too, but I didn't dare dream. Mama pulled out white long-sleeved shirts for Coda to wear to school, and pajamas for Avi. She then handed me a pair of jeans, a couple of t-shirts, and a red jacket. They were brand name stuff. I bit my lip not to show my smile. Finally, something that would fit me for school. Classes had started ages ago. We were now in the second week of October, but I wasn't going to complain. Better late than never. I have something especially for you, Minerva, Mama said at the end, handing me a light blue silk dress. The fabric felt like cool water on my fingers. Emotion filled me like the sun being born inside my heart. "What's this for?" I asked, avoiding her eyes. If I looked at her for more than 3 seconds, I'd cry. She hated crying. Mama smiled. "This is a special dress for auditions, right?" I saw it and thought it would be perfect. I held the dress softly, like it would be crushed if I hugged it against my chest like I wanted to. "Thank you, Mama," I whispered. My mom hadn't been too excited for me to audition. Actually, she hadn't been excited at all. She'd said there were other ways for me to become the President of the United States, that a play in 7th grade didn't matter, especially not Peter Pan. How did she know if she hadn't attended middle school in the U.S. to start with? But I guess she just hated plays, not only Peter Pan. Once our church had performed a version of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. They'd adapted it to cowboys, who have a party at the end. Joseph and his brothers wore Mexican sombreros, with fruits on top, as they did the limbo dance. Mama had been livid and made us leave before the song was over. Back then, I thought she had overreacted. Coda had been devastated we didn't get to eat the refreshments at the end, but Mama didn't care about that. She ranted about how people hold on to wrong ideas just because that's the way things have always been done. That had been the last time we went to church. This, bringing me a dress, had to be her way of telling me that even if she didn't agree with me, she was on my side no matter what. I hadn't expected it. Coda looked from Mama to me, maybe feeling the cloud of unmentionable feelings that had settled over us. After a few seconds of awkward silence, she asked the million-dollar question. "Where did you get all this stuff from?" Mama caressed her hair and smiled widely. "That's a secret, Dakota mia." My sister didn't give in. "Did you buy it? On the Sabbath?" Mama stood up and walked toward the kitchen. "Of course not, Dakota. I got it yesterday. It's just that I didn't have a ride home and it was too heavy for me to walk with all the way. I left it at the nursing home, so I could bring it to you today." We might not have gone to church in a long, long time, but we still observed the commandments, and keeping the Sabbath day holy was a big one. Although I suspected Mama insisted on it to keep us out of trouble when she was either working or sleeping. My sisters tried the new clothes on while I put my treasures away. From the corner of my eye, I saw Mama's profile. Her black hair was frizzy, even when it was pulled in a tight knot on the back of her head, and her brown skin looked ashy. If I were the mom, I'd suggest she put lotion on, but of course I didn't say anything. Mama was like a stick person, drowning in her worn-out jeans and a black t-shirt she'd gotten for free when she volunteered at the school book fair years ago. I'd been in 2nd grade, and Papa was still around. "Books save lives," the t-shirt read. I tried to think of the last time I saw Mamá wearing something other than free t-shirts, but I couldn't remember. Later, after Mama's reminder that the fairies went to sleep at sundown, so we had to as well, I heard her going through last-minute preparations before she left for her job at the nursing home. Sometimes she did a double shift, like today, but she always popped in for a bit to put us in bed and make sure we were okay. "Did you leave milk for the bickies?" she asked Coda. "Remember, they watch over you when I'm gone." Bickies, short for pequeños, is what Mamá called the fairies that supposedly had followed her from Argentina. They were her friends, now ours, and they loved it when we left them gifts, like a saucer with milk. Stupid fairies. I covered my head with the pillow to block the lies, and the disgusted expression I knew I had on my face. When Mamá left, I was in charge. No fairies ever helped me. The usual tightness in my chest pressed down on me. I hated this feeling. But there was no one else. No fairies watched us. It was just me protecting the girls all night long. Who protected me? I preferred not to ask aloud because I already knew the answer. Coda rustled in the bed. I held the comforter so she wouldn't pull it off me as she kicked and squirmed. On the other bed, Avi slept like those garden statues of dreaming cherubs, her bottom sticking up in the air, her mouth the perfect pucker. Mamá finally came back to kiss us goodnight before she headed out. She covered Avi with the Winnie the Pooh blanket. She straightened the covers on Coda's side of the bed, and finally, she knelt on the floor next to me for the last directions of the night. "Stay in bed, and if Avalon wakes up, go sleep with her. I know." I cut her off. She nodded once and exhaled like she was relieved I understood that crucial piece of information. Her breath smelled bad, of unbrushed teeth, although she was so strict about teeth hygiene. "I'll be home in time to braid your hair for the auditions." She kissed my forehead, her lips lingering against my skin for a second and a heartbeat. "We'll be okay," I said. "We always are." Secretly, I was relieved she'd remembered about my hair. She stood and stretched and stretched. She yawned silently, painfully. "Dream with the angels, Minerva," she finally said. "If the shadow of a boy sneaks in, don't take your sisters on an adventure. Wait for me." I smiled, rolled my eyes at her, and shook my head all at the same time. "Don't worry," I said. "I'll be here." The door clicked shut, and I fell asleep right away. My dreams were full of music and fairies, sneaking shadows and glitter. When I woke up, I bolted to a sitting position. Our basement apartment was usually dark even in the middle of the day, but a little light still entered through the small, grimy windows. It was too light for 6:30 in the morning, when Mamá always came back from work and got us ready for the day. She usually took a little nap while we were at school, and then at noon, she took Avalon to daycare and headed to her day job for a few hours until dinner time. I slipped out of the bed, noticing golden glitter on my pillow. Maybe when Avi was coloring, she'd accidentally stained the sheets with sparkly markers or something. After all her tossing, Coda had ended up at the foot of the bed. But next to her, glitter like a snail's trail sparkled on the bed covers. Avi had slept through the night. She was still in the same position I'd seen her in last. She smiled like her dreams were magical. But where was Mamá? I ran into the kitchen to check if she was there. The kitchen was empty. I went back to the bedroom. I peeked into the bathroom. In our dark basement apartment, there was no trace of Mamá. 8 o'clock flashed on the microwave clock. And for the first time in my life, my mom wasn't home when I woke up. Chapter 2. Lessons from the Middle. I debated whether or not to wake Coda. Maybe if I went back to sleep for a few more minutes, Mamá would be here when I woke up. Her absence just a nightmare. But my jumbling thoughts wouldn't let me close my eyes. In the end, the need to have someone to help me carry the terrible knowledge that Mamá wasn't home won. When I told her the news, Coda heard me in silence, squinting her swollen eyes. Finally, she said, "The bus was late." Then she got up, got dressed, and combed her hair. Just the sides, though. The back was all sticking out. But she couldn't see it and wouldn't let me help her. She sat at the table, waiting for breakfast and our Mamá. Avi woke up with a smile, but after looking all over the apartment, she came back to me, opening her eyes really wide, daring me to read her mind. She spread her hands open, palms up, and shrugged. "I don't know," I answered her silent questions. "I'm sure she'll show up any minute. Let's change your diaper." She only wore diapers to bed and daycare. The lady there said she couldn't tell when Avi had to go, and that it was easier to change a diaper than to clean the floor. Avi's diaper was dry all day and all night. She also usually had painful infections for holding it in so long, the doctor said. I knew because Mamá told me everything. Sometimes I thought I was her only friend. So where was she? If she had other plans after work, she would have told me. "Do you think Mama's okay?" Coda asked, her face reflecting exactly what I felt but couldn't show. I finished dressing Avi with an outfit that had been mine and then Coda's but still looked great. "Of course, dummy." Coda flinched out of her worry. Her eyes narrowed in challenge. "You're so rude. When Mamá comes home, I'm going to tell her you called me names, and then you'll be in so much trouble, Minerva Soledad." She turned on her heels and joined Avi, who ignored the Cheerios I served her in a bowl. She played with a stack of blocks instead. I headed to the bedroom to make the beds. It took me forever to get the comforter straight and even on all sides. Even then, the lines of the plaid were crooked at the foot of the bed. After the clock flashed 9:30, I gave up trying to get it perfect. I took my books out of my backpack and started doing homework for the day. Already missing classes so early in the year wasn't the start I had planned. Every year, I wanted to be the kid with perfect attendance. But something always happened. We had to move at the last minute, or there wouldn't be money for gas. And today, I couldn't leave my sisters without supervision, even if Mamá was on the way. If something happened to them, I'd never forgive myself. The morning passed really fast. "I'm hungry," Coda said, holding Avi's hand. "Already? You guys just ate." I don't know why the words came out so sharp and cold. Avi hid behind Coda, who still had that spark of challenge in her eyes. Only it was wet with hunger now. I looked in the cupboards and found a box of macaroni and cheese. It was the regular one, the one for the stovetop. Since last year, when I dropped a teapot of hot water and burnt my hand, Mamá didn't let me boil water anymore. But this was an emergency kind of occasion. "I'm going to cook," I said. "Keep Avi out of the kitchen." Immediately, Avi ran and hugged my leg. "You don't know how to cook," Coda pointed out. I tried to pry Avi's fingers open, but she held on so tight, I couldn't get her away without hurting her. "It's okay," I said, sweat already beading on my nose and my upper lip. "Let's see what's in the fridge." The fridge smelled musty, even though it was scrubbed clean. Mamá said it was older than the world. Inside, there wasn't much that could be eaten without cooking it. In an old butter tub, there was some leftover rice pudding. Avi loved that stuff. There was only enough for her. I found 2 apples and 5 slices of cheese. Coda and I would eat that. But when I served her the pudding, Avi shook her head. "Eat, Avi," I said, my mouth watering, anticipating the cinnamony treat that for some stupid reason she didn't want. She shook her head and slid down from the chair. She took my hand, then Coda's, and walked us toward the window.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?